Hello, everybody. Hope you guys are enjoying this day. I hope wherever you are, it's not as hot there as it is here because it's just not fun right now. But it is Friday, September 20th, and it's time for another story. Now, this Bigfoot encounter, as it were, took place in the southwestern portion of South Dakota. Hey, how you doing? Well, my Bigfoot experience happened to me about 4 to 4.5 years ago, and it's still as fresh in my mind today as it was then. It's never been a particularly, I guess you'd say, terrifying thing that happened. I mean, sure, it was unnerving, it was scary, but it wasn't something that just, set me into a whirlwind of fear or anything like that. And it was also never really, as other people have described, a big mental conundrum as far as like, should I tell this? Should I not tell it? Will people believe me? Will they not? It was just like, hey, it happened. And I didn't even get into a spot mentally where it even really dawned on me to tell or even care to tell. It's just something that happened. I obviously believed in it because of that. And I didn't really feel any need to think about it or talk about it too much. But those feelings about it have changed over the years. And I think a lot of that has to do with documentaries and stuff I watch. And I start to realize that maybe, it's something that needs to be looked in further and looked into more. Now, I won't name any names, but some of the people in the Bigfoot community and some of the documentaries and shows and stuff, I just happen to have the personal opinion that they are absolute nonsense. Just entertainment and nothing more. And no disrespect to them, because anybody can hear my story and think the same thing. They can think that I'm just full of crap, and that's their right. They can think that all they want. But part of it is, since it did happen to me, and I know it's real, regardless if anybody else believes me or not, the fact that I know a lot of that stuff is nonsense, or the fact that I feel so strongly that a lot of that stuff's nonsense, gives me an even bigger, form of, or a feeling of responsibility to throw something out there that I know is real and is not nonsense. And again, it's all open to interpretation and opinion, so I realize that. I'm not trying to say, hey, my story is legit and everybody else's is horrible and nonsense or anything like that. But there are ones out there that are, to me, obviously not real. So, with all that said, I do want to get into what happened to me, but not with all details included, because some of it is on private property that is my property, and I don't want people out here like photogs and stuff like that, so I'll omit some of it. So the initial thing that happened, the first thing that happened, is I had been called into work unexpectedly practically every day for like several weeks. So I was in a bad mood. I was grumpy. I was tired. I mean, I can't turn down the hours and the money, but at the same time, you would like some time off once in a while. I'm sure a lot of us have been there. And one time when I had about 3 hours or something like that off in the morning where I could do some stuff, I was under my car changing my oil. Because, of course, you can't afford to have anybody else do anything for you any day anymore because everything is so expensive. So you got to save every penny you can. So I'm under my car, changing the oil, and I've got one of those cars that are pretty low to the ground. It's a sedan. So I don't have much room under there. It's not like I'm under a big lifted truck and I can just look around me. When I'm under there, I can barely have room to move. So I'm sure everybody out there listening can understand and appreciate just how vulnerable you would feel if you're laying under a car with hardly any room to move, and suddenly you hear a bellow of a monstrous voice or whatever, a scream. You have no idea what it is. You can tell it's very close to you. And like I said, it's super loud. So now you're in fight or flight mode. Like, what the heck could that be? I got to get out from under here and figure out what's going on. But there's no way you can do it fast. I mean, you have to just like inchworm yourself out from under the vehicle. Meanwhile, the gravel's grinding into your back and legs and all that. So that adds to the fun of the experience. So as I'm sliding out from under this car, trying to hurry And I thought at the last second that my head was clear of the frame and everything, and it was not quite. So I smacked myself right in the temple area with a bolt head that was sticking down out of the frame. That's normal. It's normal to have bolt heads sticking out of the frame, but that extra little half inch smacked me, and I had misjudged, and so I'm basically seeing stars when I stood up, which took what seemed like a full minute. So I stood up, I'm looking around, holding my head, kind of leaning somewhat against the car, looking all the way around, kind of doing a couple 360s, trying to see what the heck made that noise. And I didn't see anything. I could not see, even when my eyes adjusted and the pain kind of subsided a little bit, my head stopped spinning and all that good stuff. I still couldn't see any source of the noise. I didn't even see in the woods moving foliage or anything like that that would show that something was there moving around. I saw nothing. But I know whatever it was had to have been fairly close. And I wasn't imagining it. So that was like the first thing that happened that really set my radar on high alert, I guess you would say. So late that night after work, I'm staying up and I'm like watching TV, staying up later than I normally would have. And every once in a while, I would like pause the TV, turn it off, mute it, whatever, and just kind of listen. I'd go out, look out one of my windows or something like that. I was just sort of on high alert. And I probably wasn't as scared as I should have been, because after what I had heard, I really should have been more scared. I can't really explain that away, because it's not like I'm typically a very, very courageous, brave, tough person, so I don't really know what that's about. But I remember I woke up at probably 20 after 1 in the morning. Hadn't even been asleep that long. And I woke up to a pounding sound on the side of my house. And I remember I sat up straight really fast in bed, and I probably said out loud something like, "Oh, come on, you got to be kidding me." Because I had heard and read other stories and things where people talked about their houses or their cabins or something being pounded on. And I thought, this seems a little too stereotypical for me. Like, really? Is this, a legit, am I actually hearing this, or am I dreaming, or what? So it's almost like I pinched myself and got up and, splashed some water in my face and all that good stuff that you see in the movies, did the same kind of stuff. But it was very evident very quick that I was in fact awake with the world, and I was not dreaming, not in any way or shape or form. The pounding continued, and it started to make its way around my house on different walls. So that's when I started to get a little concerned. I thought, well, okay, if this is just a person pranking me, I don't think they would have the bravery to keep doing that for that long. I think they would do something like that and take off and just stop, run off, kind of like the ding dong ditch where you hit the thing on the alarm for the house front and, take off and run. That's what kids used to do in my day anyway. But I thought, oh my gosh, this is the real deal. Something really crazy is going on. This is not good. So with my brain kind of in a frenzy at this point, I reached into my closet and grabbed out my crossbow. It was the first thing I could think of that was handy right then, and just kind of threw the front door open, jumped out, looked around right and left, and I was on the porch, the covered porch portion, and turned to the left because I heard like a thumping or something in that direction. So this all happened extremely fast. I mean, we're talking about 3 seconds or something like that. Nothing. So it's still dark and everything, of course. Even with my porch light, it's still dark. I turn to the left, and I see something out of the corner of my eye. And honestly, to be totally honest, once I got actually in line with what I'm looking at, it was on my porch, and it moved out of view around the corner of my house really fast. So I only actually saw it for a second. I definitely saw something big, tall, dark on my porch moving in that direction. You could hear the very loud, very heavy footsteps, but actually seeing it only lasted for just a second. And all it was the very dim light of my porch light. So a lot of people would argue, well, there's no way you could be sure what you saw. And that is true. Technically, I couldn't Couldn't be sure what I saw, but bears don't walk around on their hind legs, as we've heard a million times. So what else could it be? What could be that thick, that tall, that heavy, that big, walking on two legs, on my porch? What else could it possibly be? I would love to know ideas of what it could be as actual possibilities other than Bigfoot, because I can't think of anything. I can't think of anything else that fits that description. But again, to be totally honest, I think it was just out of being so amped up and kind of freaked out, and basically just a reflex. Maybe I was a little trigger happy when I turned, because it wasn't like I took aim and fired. But when I turned and looked and I saw that disappear, and again, this all happened in just a matter of a few seconds, I actually shot an arrow at it in that direction. Not really at it. It's not like I saw it, took aim and shot, but it was in that direction. And it went in between two of the slats on the little guardian rail on my porch. And actually, luckily, it didn't hit it, nor did it hit any part of my porch. It just went in between the slats and out into my yard. So nothing got hurt. But still, you can imagine something like that, if I've told that part of the story good at all, I mean, even remotely decently, you'll be able to form like a mental picture in your head where you see, this person being me coming out, seeing that thing firing, and just kind of freaking out all at once. So anybody that's familiar with crossbows knows that a lot of them, this one included, takes a lot of weight to pull that back and set the string into place. Takes a lot of pressure. You're talking like 100, 200 pounds. Maybe there are ones that are even 300. Mine's kind of middle of the road, but it takes a lot. So when that depresses and lets loose and lets that arrow fly, it's not really a silent weapon. You can hear the thump of it whenever it flies forward. So I was also a little concerned that this thing was going to hear that, know that it was a threatening sound, and then come back after me. Luckily, it kept going. So from the sound of it, it didn't sound like it went down the steps or anything. It sounded like it just jumped over the railing. I don't know because I didn't see it. But I certainly did not hear the sounds of going down the steps. Of course, as big as it was, it wouldn't have had to. It could have just basically taken the step from the top to the bottom and been out of there. Probably the strangest part of this story up to this point is when I found the arrow. I went out the next day and I found it. Stuck in the ground, of course. And it had all these on just one side of the arrow, like somewhat little bends, as though every 2 or 3 inches, maybe not even that much, it looked like somebody made a little bit of a bend to like wrap it around something circular. That's the only way I can describe it. And it was like almost exact. I mean, very precise little bends every couple inches to where the arrow basically formed like almost like a half circle, only not that tight. It was kind of, in other words, the other half, if you had another arrow that was just the same, it wouldn't have made a circle. It would have made more like like a football shape. But what could have done that? Maybe nothing to do with Bigfoot. That's true. But what could have bent it like that? I hope people have some ideas. That's why I'm including that, just to see if anybody has any ideas, because it's driving me crazy to think what could have done that to the arrow. But anyway, let's get on with the rest of the story. Alrighty, now, this next part you guys are going to love for sure. I went to work. This was about 3 days later. And there are 2 ways that I can go to work. One way, I pass by my mailbox. The other way, I don't. So I don't get my mail very often because I don't get that much mail. But this time, like I said, a few days later, I went by my mailbox. And that road is only, a mile or 2. So not many people go up and down it. Hardly ever, except for me. It's on my property. It's a gravel road. The mailbox I set myself in concrete. It was 2 60-pound bags of concrete. So 120 pounds of concrete. And what was set into that was an oak 4x4, right? Drilled through with a huge lag screw or lag bolt going through to go basically out of the wood and into the concrete sideways. That way it's not just a smooth piece of wood set down into the concrete. It's got something that's metal for reinforcement, and it's got the threading of the screw or the bolt or whatever to kind of catch and be mounted in there. Basically the same principle as a screw going into wood, except it's a screw going into concrete. So the mailbox itself was nothing special. It was just a regular, aluminum mailbox. But the 4x4 that was oak and the lag screw and the concrete, we are talking very, very heavy duty. Okay? I hope I've painted a pretty good picture as to how heavy duty this was. So I drive past this and I don't see my mailbox. And when I drive past where it was, I just see a big hole. And I think, oh my gosh, did somebody hit that with a car? Well, I don't see any signs that a car drove off the road. None. Absolutely none. Just a big hole. And I'm thinking, okay, what in the world could have possibly happened? So I drive a little bit further, I don't know, 100 feet, 200 feet, and I see my mailbox laying there in the ground, laying down. The top portion, the very weak, as I described it before, metal, aluminum, whatever that you see at Home Depot and Lowe's and all that, those cheap little Chinesium or whatever you want to call them, mailboxes, of course that was dented a little. That's to be expected. Even if you just set it up and let it fall, it would dent. But that's not the interesting part. The concrete, the wood, everything, completely, and I mean completely unscathed. Not a mark, not a single mark. It looked like something had grabbed a hold of it and just yanked it straight up out of the ground. How else would you get something that heavy duty and that big out unless you rammed it with something or dug it up or, use some sort of machine? I cannot imagine how you could get that out. The more I looked at the hole and the area around it and the mailbox itself and inspected the whole area, the more I just came to the same conclusion, which was this looks like something just grabbed a hold of it and pulled it straight up out of the ground. And I don't think I have to tell you guys the kind of strength that it would take to do that. I mean, you're talking something like, an elephant could do, of course, but there's no elephants on my property. So what else could have done that? And you might be saying right now, well, come on. That doesn't mean it's Bigfoot. That's true. That's true. But I found some unexplained brown hair around a couple little areas where the wood had a notch in it. Where the little side of the wood just kind of notches up just enough to give you basically a splinter or something. Well, maybe Mr. Bigfoot got a splinter, or maybe he just got a little bit of hair stuck under there. I know, I'm reaching. I'm just sort of speculating. I know that. But the way it happened and the way everything looked, I can't imagine anything else or any other way that it could have happened except for something to just pull it straight out of the ground. And the fact that I found hairs, yes, I still have them, stuck in little side portions of that wood where it was splintered up, like something got, their fingers or whatever stuck in that, or the arm was wrapped around it or whatever. And, it's just kind of the same thing as a hangnail where you get like a little nail that's broken, and then every time you scratch something or, put your hand in your pocket, you get a little bit of fiber on there. Same thing. Now, again, could have been anything, I guess. I'd love to hear ideas. I would love to hear ideas. I'm open-minded as to, hey, what could this have been if not Bigfoot? If not Bigfoot, what could it have been? I'd love to hear ideas. But that was a relevant part of the story because all these things are happening on my property, and they're all very mysterious. They're all very, scratch your head type of things. Now, as far as the hair, I know already there's going to be people saying, hey, did you have it sent in? I've done a lot of Google research, like everybody does, trying to find places that are willing to take and test this hair. I can't find that many. The few that are willing, I guess you would say, or seem like they're open-minded to it, say that, oh, well, you have to be, a person that teaches at our school, at our university, or you have to be a person that works for this or that agency or whatever. So again, I would like ideas of, hey, where can I send this to have it checked out? And how do you know that they're not going to just falsify the results or hide them or whatever? And I don't want to sound like a conspiracy theorist, but when it comes to something like this, who can you trust with something like that? How you know they won't just dispose of it? I don't know. I'm not an expert. You guys tell me. So fast forward about a week or 10 days, something like that. I'm at my house again, and guess what? I'm dog sitting for a friend of mine, taking care of their dog while they're on vacation. And the dog starts whimpering and crying and barking and acting crazy. Well, I know this dog. I've been around this dog for years. I'm familiar with it completely. It never acts like that. It's one of those dogs that doesn't care about anything. I mean, you could put food right in front of its face and it would just be like, yeah, whatever, I don't care. I mean, it just does not care about anything. So to see it acting like that, I thought, what is going on? Seriously, this has to be something noteworthy. So I grabbed this flashlight. It's one of those old mag lights that, you can knock somebody out with if you had to, and it holds like 500D batteries or whatever. I go out, I focus the beam out into the woods. I'm looking from kind of stretching from the edge of my porch, and I'm seeing what looks like small trees. When I say small, maybe, 15 feet, 10 feet, not very wide, not very thick at the trunk. And I see these trees just swaying back and forth like something shaking the heck out of them. And immediately I thought, something's shaking those trees to try to get some sort of prey that it's going after, to fall out or be knocked out. Well, it took a while for my eyes to just adjust. And I thought what would help that is to turn the flashlight off so my eyes could adjust, because your eyes adjust to the dark better when there's no light around, because I guess your pupils open up and it lets more light in. If there's more light available, then they close up. So it seemed to work when I turned that off, got my eyes kind of adjusted after a minute or two, and I see fairly clearly, as clear as you can in that lighting situation, some big dark figures. It looked like two figures. It really looked like two figures, not just one. And there were two trees. And it's like one was at each tree, maybe 6 to 10 feet apart, shaking the crap out of these trees. And I've walked up through the woods and stuff that time, in that little area. And I know that the trees in that area, I myself could not make them shake that much at the top. I mean, if I grabbed a hold of them and shook them for all I was worth, they would barely even be visibly moving at the top. So whatever these things were big and strong, and they're shaking the crap out of these trees. And occasionally you could hear kind of like a crack, almost like they were getting ready to break. So what do I think it was? I think it was Bigfoot times 2. I mean, believe it or don't believe it, I don't really care. I saw what I saw. But again, what else could it be? You see arms and hands. You don't see paws. You see these things gripping the trunk and shaking. I mean, you can tell even in the dark the difference between a paw just pushing and a hand grabbing. It's the type of thing you can see regardless. You can tell just by the movements, just by the silhouette. The arms, the legs, the head. How can you not? You could tell like a bear's got short hind legs and they would be standing up all awkward and pushing with paws, and you could see the silhouette of the snout and the ears and all that stuff. So, I mean, this looks like the silhouette of 8-foot tall guys in ghillie suits? I don't think so. And unfortunately, I guess at some point they caught wind of me or something and they stopped shaking the trees and looked directly in my direction and started with the screaming and the bellowing. Well, I was back in the house in a big hurry, shut that door and locked it. Dog was hiding there the whole time. The dog's freaking out, barking and screaming and whimpering and everything. And I'm trying my best to get to shut up. That thing would not shut up for anything. Finally, I got it to be quiet. And I think the only reason I got it to be quiet is because those things left. I think they finally shut up and left and, made their little vocalizations heard, whatever their, end game result or end game want was, just to scare me back in the house, I guess, because if that's all they wanted, it worked. But after they set up a holler and took off, I guess, the dog finally settled down. But man, you talk about at that point being just a nervous wreck. And again, it's not even so much fear, it's just pure nervousness. It's like overstimulation where your body's like, man, if I smoked, I would need a cigarette right now. As you can probably guess and imagine, I didn't get a wink of sleep that night. I was just too riled up. But I feel like even if I didn't tell the story very well, and I don't remember a whole lot of details, just from what I told you, from what I saw right then, in my mind, if I was the person listening to the story and not being told the story, I would be saying to myself too, what else could that be besides Bigfoot? And again, I would love to know. The only thing I can think of is a person not near big enough and a bear. It wouldn't look the same. So if you guys got ideas, please let me know. I'm open-minded, but I'm willing to bet money. If I had any, if I had some extra money, I would bet money, but I would bet money that was a Bigfoot. 2 big feet, Bigfoots, whatever, however you say it. So if there are other people out there, which obviously I know there must be, even if they don't hear this story, if someone else, hears the story or transfers this to them or however that works, hey, don't be afraid to share your story. This crap is real. They're out there. These things are real and they are there whether you want to believe in it or not. That's my 100% feeling and belief. Nobody's going to make me change my mind for anything. So, again, to the people out there, please don't feel crazy or stupid. Share your story. And if you don't want to share your story, that's fine. But at least rest assured and have some peace of mind knowing that, hey, you're not crazy, you're not stupid. They're out there. Other people have seen them. They're real. So just be okay with the fact that you've seen it too. All right, well, there's the story. Hope you guys enjoyed. Take care.